Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
Bored with your boring cardio? Stop pedaling that snooze cycle to Nowheresville and try some cardio that's actually fun. Supernatural Fitness, available on MetaQuest. Isn't that right, Jane Fonda?
Cardio will never be boring again.
Sweat to the beat of thousands of chart-topping songs inside stunning virtual landscapes.
Bet your stationary bike can't do that.
Visit GetSupernatural.com and join the next fitness revolution. Supernatural VR Fitness, only on MetaQuest. Rated T for Teen.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Golden 20s podcast. My name is Sadie, and I'm joined by my co-host, Tegan.
Hi.
And today is Season 4, Episode 52, which means this is the last episode of this season for us, which is so exciting. We are kicking off a whole new season, Season 5, next week. But we thought we would end this season, if you will, with a bit of a bang. We are going to be talking all about disconnecting from social media and kind of just enjoying life, because I feel like right now the world is in a very tough spot. And yeah, I don't think we need to get too much into it until we do, but we're going to set the scene nicely with a connection card, as always.
Yes. Let's see. This week's question is, what lesson took you the longest to learn? I feel like there's a lot of things I could say for this.
Oh, gosh.
I feel like for me, the lesson that took me the longest to learn, and I'm still learning it, is like sometimes things that go badly aren't my fault. Where I feel like for a long time, everything bad that happened in my life, I just knew it was my fault and that I had done something to get me there. When now, being like 29, having like almost 30 years of experience, I now know like a lot of shit just is happening. Like whether you can control it or not, or whether it's your fault or not, or like things would have happened that way, whether you changed this, that, or the other thing. But I'm still learning it, because that is still my instinct when something goes wrong, is that it went wrong because I'm terrible and it's my fault, or whatever it is. And it can be as big as like, I don't know, something going wrong at work, or like we didn't get the house that we put the offer in on, or whatever. Or like small things like this person's annoyed at me, or like I bought something that I shouldn't have and I wasted that money. Where it's like, it's not like, I don't want to say it's not that deep, but it kind of is not that deep. Like random shit's just happening and we have to just accept that. But it is hard. So yeah.
I think that's something a lot of people will be able to relate to. And I think rather than saying it's not that deep, for me, it's like, it's not that personal. You know what I mean? Where it's like, yeah, it's not me at the center of all the bad things happening. Like, it's not personal. Yeah. Sometimes bad things happen. That's just the way it goes. Yeah, I think that's a good one. I'm glad you said it's something you're still learning, because initially I was thinking about what's a lesson I've like learned and consider like achieved. I'll never face that before again. So okay, this takes the pressure off a bit, because I feel like what I'm currently learning, and I'm facing it in many different areas of my life, but I feel like I'm making a lot of progress and like moving forward on, is just my obsession with being perfect, and my expectations of myself are so much higher than what other people expect from me, but also what I expect from other people. So it's very much like why do I expect myself to be this superhuman who can do absolutely everything perfectly and flawlessly and overcome challenges like amazingly when I don't expect that from anyone else and nobody expects that from me. I feel like people expect that from me, but really it's just an expectation I have for myself. So I don't know. I feel like that's something I've been working through a lot in therapy. My therapist is always like, why do you view yourself as the exception? Like, why is it okay to tell your friends to slow down and rest, but you're the exception where you don't need to slow down and rest? And why is it okay for, your friends to do this, but you have to do something different and like do bigger and better all the time? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like lately, like over the past maybe couple months, even to like year or two, I've really started to understand how I think it's common knowledge perfection's not possible. Like when you're striving for perfection, you're setting yourself up for failure. But I also feel like I've been really learning that it's really a liberating and also beautiful thing to be human and to make mistakes and to fail and to be vulnerable and to not be perfect. Like that's what enables you to have deep friendships and like relationships, is by being just a normal human that people can relate to. And it's good to feel a range of emotions. Like it's okay to not be happy all the time. Like that's the whole point of being a human, and like that's a great thing. So I feel like this is a lesson I'm really learning, is like it's not weakness, it's like life, I guess, when something doesn't go perfectly. Yeah. So something I'm working on, something I'm learning, but I feel like I'm making a lot of progress on it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. I feel like ours are very like similar, where I think of like starting the decade of your 20s with like the expectations of like, I'm going to be perfect, things are going to go right. And here we are at the end of that decade and being like, actually, things go wrong and you're not perfect.
Twist. Yeah.
So, yeah.
100%. Awesome.
Those are good answers.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
I'm glad we came up with something. Love it. But I love that sentiment that, it is a constant work in progress. But in any case, we are going to jump into the main part of today's episode. Like I started kind of teasing, we're going to be chatting all about how to disconnect and why I think this is definitely top of mind for Tegan and I. I feel like we're only a few weeks into a new year, but it is the same shit. And I feel like there's so much happening in the world right now, especially in the US. And I think people are just anticipating, me and Tegan included, or maybe Teg, I shouldn't speak for you, but I think everyone's anticipating this year to just be a huge shit show and for things to just get even worse. And I feel like I've been really sucked into news headlines and just like really negative news where it quickly spirals, where next thing you know, I like have zero faith in humanity. I, again, am taking everything personally and being like, oh my God, everything's my fault, kind of like you were saying, Tag, being like, I need to change what I do for a living. I need to, give back more. Like, I just go into this like identity crisis, if you will, when I consume too much negative news and like too much negative content. And I think right now it's also this feeling of hopelessness, being like, I don't even know if it's going to get better, or it might get a lot worse before it gets better. That's also really bogging people down. So all this being said, we are going to chat through some really helpful ways to help you guys if you're also navigating this right now, or if you need a gentle reminder throughout the year, if it does end up being a huge shit show, like I'm kind of anticipating it to be, for how to disconnect from your news sources, from social media, and just kind of lean into little things you can control and little moments to bring yourself joy outside of your phone screen.
Yeah. And I feel like this is perfect timing with like the impending TikTok ban, where when we're recording this, I think we're like 3 or 4 days out from the ban. in the US. Who knows? Maybe by the time this episode's posted, that changes. I don't know. But I've seen a lot of discussions online of like, well, where are we going to go now that we can't use TikTok? And people are like, girl, outside. Like, I'm going to go touch grass for real. And so I feel like overall, there's just this sentiment of whether it's just like you're tired of it or you're annoyed that like Meta was able to like lobby to get this done. And you're just like, I don't want to put up with these social platforms anymore. I don't want to see the negative stuff. I don't want to be a part of the cycle. I don't want to be giving my money to these advertisers. Like, whatever your reasoning, I feel like it's a very popular sentiment right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In our 2025 ins and outs, I remember saying how like community's really in. And I really think 2025 is going to be like community over content. Like people are done consuming content, especially content they can't relate to, content they don't agree with. And they're really just craving community over everything. So I feel like we do have a few bits in here on how to find community. But I agree. Most of it is just putting down your phone and getting outside and connecting with other people.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that kind of takes us into the first point, which is all around kind of monitoring your screen time. And we've said this before so many times, and everybody knows this, that high screen time equals low mental health. And honestly, your high screen time is honestly probably also rotting your brain. It's making you forget how to think critically. It's, overshadowing all of your own personal thoughts and opinions and values because you're inundated with content when, you're scrolling. It doesn't matter if it's TikTok, Instagram, or even just looking at like your news app to stay informed. I feel like all of this just starts to compile where all of a sudden you just have no sense of feeling and like you don't feel like a human anymore. So all this being said, I feel like monitoring your screen time is really big and then practicing ways to get your screen time down. And I think we have lots of tips in like past episodes on how to do that. If it's, like working in screen-free time to your routines, if it's in the morning, in the afternoon, like instead of through your lunch break going on your phone, like you're just kind of going for a walk, running errands, something like that, and into your wind down before bed routine as well.
Yes, that's one of the biggest things for me because I will never be a person who quits social media. I did this whole exercise in September, I think, where I came up with like what my values were. And a lot of them were like connecting with people, being creative. And my biggest outlet for being creative is making video content. Now, I could just be making it and not sharing it, but I'm like, I made it, so I want to share it. And also, like I just said, one of my values is connecting with people. So it's not realistic, I think, of me to be like, I'm just going to quit social media. And so I don't think it would be also realistic for me to come on here and be like, just quit social media, because I've seen the videos of the girls saying to do that or the articles saying it'll change your life. 100%. It's not realistic for me, not to mention the fact that I need to have these accounts to have my job. So it's like sort of a weird, complex issue, but I wanted to start there. But one big thing I do is schedule phone-free time. So the first thing is I use the screen time like features that are built into my phone. My phone shuts off all the apps at I think 10:30, and then I'm not able to use them again until 8:30. And so that's basically ensuring the last half an hour of my day and the first half an hour of my day, I am not able to use any of the apps outside of like my library app and Spotify to listen to music. And it tends to be now at this point, those zones have gotten even bigger. Like most nights after 9:30, I just put my phone on the charger, and same in the morning, but I like to have it sort of shut off at those times. The other thing is to create like no phone areas. And so this for me is my bedroom is a no phone area. I still like on my lunch will go be like, you know what? I just want to like have a rotting lunch hour, and we'll like lay in my bed on my phone. I'm cool with that. Some people will say that's bad, whatever. But it's like I don't sleep with my phone beside my head or anything like that. The other thing is that I don't have the app versions of some of the websites I go to on my phone. So I no longer have the Facebook app on my phone. I don't have the Twitter app on my phone and like some of these other ones. And my reasoning is I want to only go on those apps when I'm sitting at my computer so that I'm more mindful about it. Like I'm on Facebook. 90% of the time I'm on Facebook, I'm looking at Marketplace. So it's like I'm looking at Facebook because I'm looking at Marketplace, not to mindlessly scroll. And the other thing is I have an ad blocker on my computer. So then none of the websites make money from me, which is, I don't know, me maybe being just like petty. But it's also nice just for like visual noise and clutter as well. So those are kind of my like screen-free time ideas that I live by currently.
Yeah, I love that so much. I feel like this is another tip I've seen and I've practiced, but I don't practice enough, where just, again, bringing like mindfulness to that, like doom scrolling or like opening apps just because it's like I open my phone, I immediately open TikTok or Instagram, whatever. I love your idea of like not having the app and like making intentional on your desktop, but you could also move around the apps on your phone screen once a week, once a month. Because for me, literally, as soon as I unlock my phone, the first thing I do without even thinking is open my Instagram app. And it's like, just because my brain knows exactly where it is and like it's in the habit of doing this now where I'm not even processing or thinking of doing it. But it's like just by moving your apps around, you can break that cycle and bring some like intention behind it. So just another little tip I was thinking of while you were talking, Tag. I think also like advice we've given in the past too is, again, knowing going completely social media free isn't realistic for a lot of people, or a lot of people, just don't want to go down that route, which I totally agree. Like, I don't think I could live in a world without social media either. I enjoy it. Previously, we've said, really curate who you follow, but I really think this is becoming more challenging as these social media platforms are really like pushing into suggested content. So it doesn't even matter who you're following. You're still going to see content from accounts you're not following, which makes it hard to like really curate your feed, if you will. Yeah. So I think taking this a step further is choosing which social platforms you want to be on. And I think back to like Twitter when it was acquired and then turned into X, like how many people were like, you know what, this platform doesn't align with my values anymore. I don't agree with or, fit in with the content that's being shared here. I'm just gonna see myself out. And to be honest, I see like with everything going on in the meta space, which is like super topical right now in the news, especially while we're recording this, with them getting rid of fact checking in the US and just like migrating a whole bunch of their policies that could potentially cause more hate comments and like fake news and a really negative space similar to what X turned into. I can see people potentially doing the same thing with Facebook and potentially Instagram if things spiral and like get really out of hand. So all this being said, it doesn't need to be I'm on social media or I'm not. It could be as simple as I'm on TikTok, but I'm no longer on Instagram, or I'm not on Twitter anymore, or I am on Pinterest because Pinterest, like, I feel happy and productive and inspired when I'm on there. Like, I think you can really also cater your content to the channels that you like and align to your values.
Bored with your boring cardio? Stop pedaling that snooze cycle to Nowheresville and try some cardio that's actually fun. Supernatural Fitness, available on MetaQuest. Isn't that right, Jane Fonda?
Cardio will never be boring again.
Sweat to the beat of thousands of chart-topping songs inside stunning virtual landscapes.
Bet your stationary bike can't do that.
Visit GetSupernatural.com and join the next fitness revolution. Supernatural VR Fitness, only on MetaQuest. Rated T for Teen.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I love Pinterest. I will say it's one of those that I usually only use on my computer just because it's so advertiser heavy. And I also found Pinterest, I don't know if you found this, Sadie, but there's been so much AI content, at least on my Pinterest, where I'm just like, I'm looking up like house inspiration stuff a lot of the time. So I'll be looking up like pink and red bedroom. And then half of them are like AI. So that's kind of weirding me out. But I also get that AI is so new. So it's probably just like kinks in the Pinterest algorithm to get that sorted. But yeah, I love Pinterest. I'm also a big Reddit person because you only like subscribe to the like channels that you want to see. So that's a big thing for me. It is easy, I think, to fall down the rabbit hole on Reddit of like subscribing to the channels that are toxic. There's so much nastiness there, like actual disgusting content where I don't know, it's kind of normalized there, but I think if you're very mindful with the channels you're subscribing to, like mine are just fully my interests, where it's like Reddit pages about YouTubers I watch and about the shows that I watch and about movies and music, and life is good. But it can get kind of weird. Like even r/Canada is super like racist right now. So it's like, I'm not a part of that subreddit currently, but I do like Reddit just because it's easy to curate and there is way less advertising and they're less pushy with like, here's random content you'd probably like to see. Like I'm only seeing content to pages I'm subscribed to.
Yeah. And I feel like if you're feeling hopeless and like, I don't know how to impact change, I actually think leaving social media platforms you don't believe in and align to is actually way more impactful than you realize. Because as somebody who works in paid social advertising, like as soon as communities on, not communities, sorry, but like followership and like how many people you can reach on a platform starts decreasing, advertisers start shifting their dollars away from that. So like that's been the case with Twitter and X. I don't know if that will be the case with Facebook and Instagram just because they really are a powerhouse. But if enough people stand up for what they believe in and take action, like inevitably that will be what happens. So I feel like it's kind of tackling the biggest fish to fry right now, but that is more meaningful and impactful than you probably are giving yourself credit for. So just wanted to flag that as well. And you can probably already see why I've been having an existential crisis about what I do for a living and why I've been spiraling so much. But in any case, I feel like, yeah, just some food for thought for you guys.
Yeah, your clicks are currency. So you are trading in your time to use these platforms for free in exchange for them showing you ads. You don't have to do that. Like just cut it out and they have no one to show the ads to. So I totally agree. I think it's really smart to be selective with how you spend your time because it is valuable. These platforms are selling it to people. So definitely something to keep in mind. I think the last thing on the like curating your social feed thing that we're talking about that I wanted to bring up is I feel like it's something kind of interesting and cool and different is to use social media that's like hobbies aligned. So like I used Letterboxd, which is a movies reviewing like website. Is kind of like IMDb, but there are these like social community elements to it. And I use Goodreads, which is kind of the same, but for books. Although I am considering switching to a different like book tracking app that isn't owned by Amazon. But I like the idea of leaning into like communities or hobbies that you already have so that you're not just thrown into like the world and here's a bunch of random shit. Because I know like there's apps for bird watching, there's apps for like hiking, and there's apps for exercising and all these things. I feel like if you still want to be active, and I'm thinking especially like if you live by yourself, you move to another country, all your family and friends are somewhere else, you're like, well, I don't want to give up my social media because I'm giving up my community. Like I think that there are other ways as well that you could still be connecting with people, but I'll get more into that in a bit later, I think.
Yeah, I love that so much. My sister left social media completely last February, and she instead used Goodreads and Strava, which is like running app essentially, walking. I guess you can do hikes, swimming, like cycling, any type of activity, but she used it for running, and like those turned into her social media. So it was very much like as soon as I updated something on Goodreads, she'd see it right away because she was using these apps like social media apps. So I think that's such a great idea as well. I think outside of social media, another thing like another adjacent content kind of controlling what content you consume is around your news sources as well. So I feel like similar to what we're saying in terms of like when and how you use your social platforms, I feel you can apply this to when and how you read news as well. So I feel like the biggest thing for me is deciding when to read news and also where to read news. So it's really good, obviously, to be informed, but maybe you don't want to read news headlines or news articles at the start of your day because it might ruin your mood for the whole entire day. Or maybe you don't want to read right before you go to bed because you might read something that makes you anxious and keeps you up all night. So I feel like all of this is also just something to be mindful of. For me, I also have like muted all notifications on social media, but also on my news apps as well. Like I subscribed to the New York Times a few months ago, and the emails they would send, breaking news, like it was like multiple an hour. And they would also send push notifications. And it's like, you know what? It's very good to be informed. It's nice to be on top of like what's going on globally and to know breaking news, but I don't need to have it coming to me. Like I will look for it when I'm in the headspace and like have the time to actually read, because I think the other thing I fall into is just reading headlines. And I think a lot of the time headlines, again, it's kind of that clicks are currency. Headlines are going to, really capture you and like be what people start sharing with their friends and family, but headlines often lack context. So I think that's something I'm trying to break the habit of, is actually diving into the article and not only reading the article from the New York Times or whatever app I'm reading on, but also like looking for multiple sources so that I'm not super biased with the content I'm reading, and like trying to keep an open mind to keep myself well educated and informed as well. So yeah, just some things outside of social media I thought I'd mention. I guess actually the one thing too I wanted to mention that bridges social media and news is also seeking out independent journalism, independent voices. And I think in my 2025 ins and outs, I also mentioned Substack being in and blogging. But I really think this is why, because I think just people are looking for unbiased or a range of perspectives. And I think these new and emerging platforms like Substack are a great way to kind of like merge that social media content and like having a voice, having a platform with also being a news source as well.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like the being able to like look at the multiple sources and double check facts and everything is so important, because it's so hard to tell sometimes like where the information's coming from, or it's like, oh, is this a reputable source? Like, I don't know. It's not like it used to be when we first started using the internet, and it was like you had news websites or you had like clearly fake spammy websites. Now they all just kind of look the same, so it can definitely be hard. And like every single person in the world is going to have a bias, whether it's on purpose or not. So it's like you have to be aware of that. Like even I read Apple News a lot of the times, and there are a lot of articles about how great Apple is. Now, I love Apple for the most part, so I'm like, wow, you guys did it. Congrats. But at the same time, it's like you have to have some awareness that you're reading your news on Apple News, and then you're seeing a bunch of articles about how great Apple is, things like that. So it is complex. I think the other thing is getting your news from actual news sources. We have like laws in Canada where we can't share like direct links to social on or to news on Facebook and things like that, which has sort of helped, but then also sort of made things more confusing. But I just think that it's important to, just because you saw, say, a tweet or a TikTok saying something, that's when you like pause and go look it up. Don't be like, oh, actually, I heard about this, because I've seen like interactions in real life where people have said things that are not true, and then they've looked like silly. I have a friend who's a teacher, and I was at like a party at his house, and someone was telling him about, there was this fake news going around Canada that teachers were putting litter boxes in classrooms because kids were identifying as cats. And he was like,
a great example.
Yep. And he was like, I am a teacher and I'm telling you that's not true, and you look like an idiot for saying it. And anyone who Googles it would know that didn't happen, but I still see it on Facebook all the time. So if that's where you are getting your news, like, it's no wonder you think it's true, because that's the only information you're getting. But it is extra work. I get it. Like, it's a pain in the ass to be like, now I have to go Google this again, when, like, I'm sure half the time it's true, but it's still like, you don't want to look silly by saying something you believe is true that's made up. And half of them are like made up as jokes. The amount of like parody accounts I see people talking about, and I'm like, guys, that was a joke. So yeah, something to keep in mind for sure.
100%. And like, I don't know, I feel like this is my like this type of content, and how, yeah, it starts to emerge in like real life conversations. It's starting to divide people, where it's like people then like argue about if it's true or not. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, by doing your due diligence to like vet what you believe in, you are just removing that altogether. And I also do think it's important to like hear out other opinions and perspectives and things like that, which is why I'm really pushing like the whole independent voices, even like listening to podcasts, reading books, like from people who have different views or similar views, but like different outlook on things than you. Like, that's all really great. It's just going to make you a much more like well-rounded, empathetic person, which the world needs a lot more of these days.
Yeah, exactly. Something I remember saying to my brother like a couple of years ago, when he had an interaction with a whole group of friends where they were saying stuff that wasn't true, and he was the only person who was kind of like saying the things that were true, and no one was coming to help him. Everyone was just siding with the people saying things that weren't true. And I was like, all you can do is like do your research, know that you are the person who's correct. And I was like, and look back on history. It's never bad to be on the side of progress. It's never bad to be on the side of being the kind, empathetic person. If you want to be the opposite of that, like, go ahead. But looking back historically, being kind is good. And that's like, you just have to recenter yourself there. But I understand how hard it is when the world around you is not that way.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think maybe moving on, like, from social, screen time, news sources, all of that, I think something else we have lots to talk about are hobbies, and also really leaning into community and social interactions, like we were saying. So I feel like I want to start with hobbies, just because, again, this is something I've deemed in for 2025. And this is why I feel like hobbies are a sense of like healthy escapism, if you will, where if you're reading a book, you are tapping out of your real life for an hour or however long you're reading, and you are escaping into a fictional world where it's a completely different reality. Same with watching movies or TV shows. Like, I feel like all of this is a healthy way to exercise escapism for a little while, and I think that is a really great thing. But I think these things can also turn into hobbies, and there's other things that are maybe more hands-on that just kind of get you out of your head, get you thinking differently, just immersing yourself in the real physical world, not just the digital world. And I just feel like this is all really great for our mental health, and it also helps us cultivate that sense of community with other people. So it's kind of like the thinking of bringing back extracurricular activities from when you were a kid. I feel like it was so normal to like go to school, then you would go to your band practice, or go to like hockey practice or basketball games, whatever it was that your extracurriculars were. Like, it was normal to do that. However, as adults, it's like, no, we just kind of go to work, then we come home, we watch TV, we scroll on our phone, we go to bed, and we do it all over again tomorrow. So I feel like this is why I'm really leaning into hobbies and like standing on a soapbox, like screaming the importance of hobbies to everyone, because I feel like this is what we're missing in our 20s, and this can replace a lot of that screen time or time we're spending scrolling on screens. So hobbies could look like reading, could be baking and cooking. Maybe you're also signing up for a class, if it's like an art class or a fitness class. Even if it's not a class, I think these are things you could be doing on your own. If it's, you know, doing workouts at home, or scrapbooking, painting, coloring, crafting of any sort. Like, I think all of this is really simple stuff that you just need to be intentional to like carve time out to do. And I really do think it'll help boost your mental health.
Yeah, 100%. My screen time has been down overall in January. And I feel like a big part of that has because I got really into like fitness and have been taking almost daily classes, whether it's like Pilates or yoga, or I've been doing yoga every day at home. And like, it does take up a big chunk of time. Not to mention, it also gives you a hit of like dopamine, which is usually what you're going to your social media for anyways. So yeah, I'm definitely a big fan of that as well. I think one thing for me I wanted to call out is like leaning into actual social interactions, because something else I've been hearing around social media for probably like years at this point is that I don't see my actual friends anymore. Like Instagram, I used to sign on and, you know, see updates from my friends. Now it's all people I don't follow or celebrities, blah, blah, blah. So it's like lean into doing things that actually get you that social interaction you're missing. This could be like phone calls, texts, FaceTimes, voice notes, things like that. I also think like using apps as a way to get to that place with people like Hinge, Bumble BFF, whatever it is, I think can also be a positive way to use social media to try and get like the good vibes going.
Yeah. I love that so much. I think the last thing I wanted to touch on bridges the gap between hobbies and social interactions, and that's just the rise of social and wellness clubs. I feel like this has been something that's been really emerging over the past few years, and really it's bringing people together. Oftentimes, actually, they do start on social media. Like the number of times I've seen like different girl social clubs in Toronto to like bring people together for events or workshops, all of this stuff. Like I see it on social media first, but then it's like you actually go meet up with people in real life. But I think there's a lot of things outside of like these kind of generic social clubs that also tie into hobbies. So there's so many running clubs in my neighborhood. This was a big thing through 2024 and is continuing into 2025. Great way to make friends, find community, maybe even meet a partner if you're single and looking for someone. I heard running clubs are the spot to do that. But I also think there's walking clubs. I've been seeing so many different like, I guess apps or I don't even know, businesses, I guess, popping up. One of them is Time Left. And this is just like, how can I explain this? Time Left is like every Wednesday, they coordinate a dinner with random people that you can essentially sign up.
Right.
And then, yeah, you can go have dinner with random people. There's so many for like brunch, like same idea, but brunch, there's drinks. There's so many of these just like community-based apps and businesses popping up that I feel like it's kind of tapping into the whole social club side of things. But then there's also wellness clubs like Othership we've talked about on the podcast before, where it's like cold plunging and sauna, but it's not a fitness class, you know what I mean? So it's like just this other space you can go connect with potentially, probably like-minded people who you have some sort of common interest with, if it's your wellness or the specific hobby that this club is about. And it's just a great way to seek out these social interactions that you were just talking about, Tag, but also kind of tie in your hobbies as well.
Yeah, I love that. I love my Othership visits and things like that. It's also just like a nice, healthier alternative to like going to a bar or whatever, which I feel like 5 years ago, that was more the norm for social interaction. So it's also nice like on that front as well.
Yeah. And I think regardless of like the community or if it's just like catching up with your friends, I feel like the most important thing too is to talk to people about how you're feeling. Like, again, that whole sense of hopelessness or feeling like you're having an existential crisis from all of the news and negative content you've been consuming. I feel like as soon as you start talking to people about this in real life, you realize you're not alone in feeling this way. And I find a lot of comfort and validation in that. So I feel like that's another thing I wanted to mention just while we were talking about social interaction is open up, be vulnerable, tell people how you're feeling, because chances are they're feeling the same way. And that'll be a really comforting feeling to know you're not in this alone and you do have your friends and community to lean on.
Yes, 100%. I think the last thing for me is I love watching movies. I love reading books. like TV shows, video games, all of the healthy escapism. I also find that this really helps with my screen time. I know like watching movies and TV shows is still screen time, but it's big screen.
We know what you mean.
Not little
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah. Big screen time, good. Little screen
Yes.
time, bad.
Bad. Exactly. But I just find that it can also give you like different perspectives on the world. Like I watch movies from countries where I don't agree with politically at all. Like probably one of the countries I've seen like the most amount of movies outside of like the US is Russia. And I don't agree with a lot of Russia's politics, but I've watched a lot of their movies and it makes you really empathetic. Like everyone's just a person, whether they're agreeing with you or disagreeing with you. And especially books as well. It's really great, I think, to try and read outside of the circle of like what you know. I remember in high school we had to read this like short story and I can't remember who it was by, but it was about someone who during World War II read All Quiet on the Western Front, which is a book about like a German soldier during World War I. And they were shocked because they were like a teen when they were reading it. They're like, all I had heard was Nazis were evil. Nazis were like the devil. They were the worst. They were running the world. They were going to take over the world. And then he's like, to read this book, and it's just a person. And it like shifted this guy's whole worldview where he's like, yeah, he's on the side that I disagree with, but he's a teenage boy who's fighting for his country and doing what he thinks is right. And so I just think that it's really powerful to get those like different perspectives. And I will say, I read a lot of books that are different perspectives, close them and go, well, that was shit. So it doesn't always happen that way. But, you know, like I'm not Christian. I've read Christian books. I live in Canada. I read books from all around the world. I'm white. I try to read books from people who aren't white, like whatever it is. I just find that it can be, I don't know, like interesting to see how different people view the world. And on the other hand, I just read like trash sometimes because I'm like, I just need the trash. So
Yeah.
it's kind of twofold.
Yeah. No, I feel like that's great how you were saying like you won't regret being kind. I feel like you won't regret being educated, being empathetic, you know, like all of these make for a better, well-rounded person. So yeah, I feel like we need to hear that tag. More people need to do that. Me being one of them.
Read the weird books. That you don't
Read
wanna
the weird
read.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well, I think that was everything we wanted to talk about. Hopefully you got some ideas about how to limit your screen time, connect with your community, and feel like a little more positive. Don't worry. We've got you. We will be your little community. Like the world's been through some bad shit. We're still standing. Do not worry. We will be here week after week. And yeah, I guess on that note, make sure you're following and subscribe to us so that you see when our new episodes drop. We put one out every Tuesday. As Sadie said, next week will be the first episode of season 5.
Woo.
So yeah, definitely
Exciting.
tune into that because we've got some shit to throw down. Yep.
You bet we do.
You can also follow us on social media, but only if you want to and are mindful about it. We are at our golden 20s on almost all the platforms, and we only share things that have good vibes, I promise. And we also have a Patreon page, which is the best way to show your support for as little as $2 a month. I think that's everything. So thanks so much for listening.
See you next Tuesday.
Bye.